It's important to be aware of some of the attack vectors and categories of attacks as we prepare to launch a boatload of tools that are going to be implementing these attacks. So I want to take just a few moments in this nugget to discuss some of the vectors, types, and categories regarding attacks. One of the questions that's often asked after a company or an organization or person is attacked or hacked is, how did this happen? And it's important to be aware of several of the attack vectors that can be used to compromise systems. One of those is called an APT, an Advanced Persistent Threat. And these are normally very sophisticated and they're done over long periods of time. For example, a custom-written application that has been created and deployed as part of a bigger system that's continually monitoring and gathering information and then siphoning it out to the attacker. Basically, we're stealing information on a day-to-day basis from the victim without them even being aware of it. Another attack vector is a botnet, which is a huge network of compromised hosts used by an attacker to perform various network attacks, including denial of service. And when a botnet does a denial of service attack, it's usually considered to be a distributed denial of service attack because the attack is being delivered through multiple systems. Another vector is cloud computing. We all love cloud computing. We have storage as a service and compute as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, applications as a service. And we need to be aware that if we are using some third-party services and our data is either being stored or going across those networks, a weak link in that service provider's systems may lead to a compromise of our data and or systems and or further attacks. An insider attack is done by an individual who already has access to the system. For example, a disgruntled employee who thinks he's going to be terminated or is upset currently has access to the system, and he could leverage that access, he or she could leverage that access to deploy the attack or the hack, usually done with malicious intent. And because there's so many mobile devices out there, that's another great attack vector. Because the mobile device goes lots of different places. It's at the coffee shop, it's at the restaurant, it's in the corporate office. So if the attacker can compromise the mobile device at one of those locations, and then the mobile device is at the headquarters, that would be a potential attack vector that could be used to get further into the company. And then of course we have viruses, worms, and malware, which have many ways of entering systems and computers, including being placed on a flash drive, which an employee plugs into a computer, which is a really bad idea if you don't know what's on that flash drive, or clicking on a link they shouldn't click on, or opening an attachment, or going to websites that are suspicious, or following links they received in email that are taking them to malicious sites. And the attacks are looking for various vulnerabilities, whether it's a vulnerability in an operating system, which could include bugs in an operating system or an unpatched OS. And that could apply to a network operating system, as well as a desktop or host or server operating system. Attacks might be looking to leverage misconfigurations. And a misconfiguration could be almost anywhere. For example, maybe on a web server, a database, a network, an application platform. And again, the hacker is looking for some kind of vulnerability to take advantage of. And the company that's being attacked or the target of an attack may have application level vulnerabilities where we're actually using the application running at the target site or vulnerabilities in those applications to compromise that company. And that could include attacks such as buffer overflow attacks, cross-site scripting, SQL injection, man-in-the-middle, session hijacking, denial of service, and many, many more. One example of compromising an application is if the system has been deployed out of the box with the defaults. So if the default password, for example, for the administrator is password, and that's what this concept of shrink wrap is all about, basically as it came out of the box, and the individuals who deployed the application never changed the password from the default of quote-unquote password, that's a huge vulnerability that an attacker would love to get their hands on. In this nugget, we've discussed a few attack types, some of the vectors that are used to implement attacks, as well as introduce some categories of threats regarding networks, systems, and applications. Hey, thanks for joining me in this nugget. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.